Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome, friends, to a special Warhammer edition of Tiger Claw Radio. Maybe not, but we're going to have a good time today. We're going to listen to some chip tunes. We got our mystery track thing that we've been doing, and we got some other gags. And we're going to kick things off with a release that came out over on battleofthebits.org. And they did, I think it's Spoopy 7. Let's see, hang on a second. I have it loading right now. It's, Spoopy 7, which is, I think, from last October. And that just recently hit on Battle of the Bits. So pick it up now for free before the next one comes out. And we'll check out some tracks on that. We're going to start off with the final track. I'm sorry, it's the first track. And this is from, the name of the track is Mallard Mansion, and I'm looking at the contributing artist listing, and it's a bunch of letters. WYNGWYRM. Wingworm, I guess. But anyway, you're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. More when we come back. A shorter album than on most of the Battle of the Bits albums, but there's a couple of gems on it. That one in particular has a very Sega feel, very much a Sega Genesis feel, or a Mega Drive for everyone else in the world. All right, let's check out what we have in terms of our secret track for the day. Can you guess what track is the secret track? I'm not going to tell you what the track is. You're going to have to guess. Do you think you can guess? All right, let's see what we can do here. Do you know it immediately? This one runs 2 minutes. I feel like it's a little bit long to play in its entirety, but we'll let it run a little longer. I don't know. It might be too easy. A little bit longer. If you don't know, don't worry, because we're going to revisit it a little bit later on. Let's talk about Bolt Gun. This is a game that Darabka bought me for my birthday. So I had my birthday a couple weeks ago. And he picked up this game, Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun, which is... I'm not a big fan of the term, but it's a boomer shooter. And not huge into the term, but I'm glad that like these old school fast-paced shooters are popular enough that they have a term. So in that sense, it's okay, But anyway, old school looking shooter set in the Warhammer universe, and man, oh man, I gotta say, I really, really enjoyed it. So it's an old school shooter, and I think the hallmark of old school shooters is that every enemy that you face has a rather low HP, and so that you can just knock them down, and then they put 1,000 of them, and that's the way old school shooters maintained balance. So it's very different from modern shooters of the later days where every enemy, would potentially have the same HP as you, and you had to, take care of things. No. Very fast pace, very, blood flying everywhere. People are flying everywhere. They did a really good job making the bolt gun like a character in the game, which is really weird to say, but the first, you don't start with a gun, right? There's like a minute of gameplay before you pick up the gun. So they have this moment where it's like, take this, it's dangerous to go alone, take this kind of thing. You start with only the sword, and you find the bolt gun on a shrine shortly after. And the bolt gun functionally is like your average like light SMG in this game. And you pick it up, and it becomes the weapon that you use for 90% of the game. It's not the only weapon in the game. There are some like heavy weapons, but they're usually pretty low ammo, and they're situational. And like the second weapon is a shotgun. You really only use the shotgun if your bolt gun runs out of ammo. So that's pretty cool. So you pick up the bolt gun off the shrine, and then almost right away you face an enemy, and it shows a progress bar up top. Now in my mind, I thought, okay, this is going to start with a boss fight. So I pick up this bolt gun off this shrine, and I take aim at this enemy, and it's like one shot. It just explodes into little pieces. And I think that might have been on me, because it turns out every enemy has a progress bar like this. But in my mind, they did a really good job of drawing attention to this particular gun. It's like, all right, this particular gun has a ton of power. This is what makes you what you are, and it, you can destroy worlds with this thing. So they set the stage for a lot of violence in a really good way, and it's really satisfying to play. There's an attention to detail in the game, which I think is really cool. I'll give you an example. If you press T on the keyboard, that's the taunt button. All right. You press it, and your little guy, his hands go up, and he has some sort of saying, "For the Emperor," or something like that. Now, think about a feature like that. Typically, if there was a taunt in a game, there's like maybe one thing that they would say, or maybe two, maybe three if it's like a really good game, and then it would like go between the three randomly. There's like 100 things this dude says. The last time I played it, I hit the button like 15 times, and I did not get to the part where he was recycling things yet. And I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure that it's dynamic depending on what's around you. Like he'll talk about demons if you're around like monster guys. I don't know. It's an attention to detail that's, I think, really well done. One thing that they kind of did away with is key hunting, which is like a hallmark of the classic FPS shooter, is hunting keys. This happens in Doom a lot, Once you clear out all the rooms, you got to find the key to the door. Well, what they did, there are keys that you have to find to unlock doors, but they added a navigate key. So if you've played Quake 2 since they revamped Quake 2 on Steam a couple years ago, there's a button like that where you press N for navigate, and then a dotted line will show up on the floor to point you in the direction you're supposed to go to either unlock the door, or get the key or what have you. So you really can just focus on the destruction, and also, ironically, that made it easier for me to explore because I didn't have to worry about getting lost. There were only 2 parts where the N key failed. There was one stage early on where I would press the N key and it would like point in the direction I was supposed to go. And I ended up going in a big circle. And the N key was just like, yeah, keep going this way. And I was just going in a big circle. And I found my way out in like 10 minutes. But that was an example of the navigation key failing. And then there was another room like 5 hours into the game where you jump through a portal and there's no ground on the other side. And you have to, like, as you're falling, you have to, like, navigate to the right spot. That took me a while to figure out where to go. So there you go. So that's Bolt Gun. So I enjoyed that. Let's see, how much am I into that now? 7.6 hours. I enjoyed that enough that I went to the sales page and I picked up the other action game that's related to the Warhammer series, which I think is called Space Marine. Space Marine and Bolt Gun are in like a pack together, and it was on sale, so I just bought the rest of the pack. It ended up being about $8, and I got Space Marine, which is a third-person shooter, and that also looks really good. So yeah, I'm really, really digging it. It does get old. You know, all you're doing is shoot, you know, and so I've been playing it in like hour and a half sittings, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. So that's Warhammer 40K Bolt Gun. I got this as a gift. It's been on my wish list forever, but the ticket price is $21.99. And before I bought it, I didn't buy it. I was gifted it. Before I, was gifted the game, I thought that was really high. Even now on sale, it's $14, $13.19 or something like that. Now that I've played it, I gotta say, worth that ticket price, at least for sale, because what a good game. What a good game. So there's sort of a niche type of game that I enjoy that I'm sure you're familiar with. I like these World War II hex-based war games, right? Panzer General, Panzer, and all the games that are sort of exactly like that, Allied General and whatnot. I like those games. I got into physical versions of those games, with the hexes and the counters and whatnot. It's a thing. And there's a company that makes them called Slytherin that makes a bunch of them. Panzer Corps 2 are probably two of the more popular ones. Well, I found out, as it turns out, Slytherin, who makes these hex-based war games, made a Warhammer game. And they not only did they make a Warhammer game, but they made it's one of their World War II hex-based, counter games just with a Warhammer skin on it. And it's called Warhammer Armageddon. And the base game is, I think it was like $3. I paid a few extras so that I could get like all the DLC. Hang on a second, I'm opening this in Steam because I think it's worth looking at. Yeah, here we go. The base game is $3.99, and I bought the Imperium Complete bundle, which is, I don't know, it won't show me. Only if like a few dollars more than that. I don't think it was more than 10. But yeah, complete. Like, I was playing it today, and here, this is written on the store page from one of the users. It says Panzer General style adaptation of Warhammer 40K. Great turn-based strategy if you like the genre. Otherwise might be difficult to get into. And I think that's a fair statement. As these hex-based war games go, some are better than others in terms of how playable they are, how much information they try and throw at you. Sometimes it's too much, and it really takes an experienced player to sift through it and zero in on what matters. A good example of that would be Grigsby's War in the East, which is a war game that's like $80 on Steam or something like that, and it's very expensive because it's huge in scope. And if you look at this thing and it's like, I don't know what's happening. There's too much here for me to look at. It's not an introductory game into that type of game. A good, Panzer Corps is an introductory game. There are relevant stats. There's enough there for it to be, to have deep strategy behind it. But exactly what's happening and what you're looking at. And it does it very well. That's where Warhammer Armageddon sets. Yes, it's a weird type of game if you're not into these war games, and yes, that can be difficult to get into if it's not your thing. But as war games go, it did a really good job of being approachable. I put almost 2 hours into it, like a little over an hour and a half, I guess, today, and having played some war games that didn't do it very well, I gotta say, I was never confused about what was happening. It was a really cool game. So that's Warhammer Armageddon. I dig it. I've just had the one session, but I can tell you that it has. Hang on one second. There we go. It has a level editor or a scenario editor, rather, because you think about it, essentially you just have a hex-based game and there's counters on the board. So a game like this, it would be relatively easy for them to set up a level editor, and most of them have something like that, and Warhammer Armageddon is no exception. Unfortunately, it looks like it does not have Steam Workshop, and I'm clicking around to confirm that. We're going to go back to library. We're going to go to there's no workshop, which is a drag. Because a game with a level editor that's easy to use would really, really benefit from Workshop in a big way. But it's covered on the Slytherin website. Slytherin is one of these companies where on their website they have like an old style web forum, and that actually gets used. And all of their games have a sub forum, and then you go in there, and then there's tons of mods, and that's where you can find lots of mods for Warhammer 40k Armageddon. It is a drag that they don't have Workshop, and specifically amongst war games, I see a lot of games where like they didn't add Workshop support, and the reason why is because they're like, well, everybody who's interested is involved in these forums. Okay, well, if that's the truth, then why did you bother selling it on Steam, and why not just only sell it on your website? So that kind of bugs me, and Slytherin is not the only company I've seen do it. So, I don't know when this game is from. Yeah, 2014. That's not something they're going to be adding in the future. It just is what it is. But it does have a level editor, and that's pretty cool. So, Warhammer 40k Armageddon. That's one for you. We're at about 17 minutes in, and we're getting close to the 20-minute mark. This is about the time I like to tip my hat and thank the Patreon sponsors. It's a Patreon-sponsored program, and these guys give of their resources to make sure we can keep coming back every week. And I don't give a whole lot to the Patreon supporters. I don't do a separate podcast that only appears behind a paywall, and the reason is because if I'm making content, I want to try and make it for everybody. So these guys really do give just for the sake of giving. So as an old tradition, I like to read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen here on the air. They are EmeraldRangers.com, Tecmo Balls, and Darabka. Thank you guys so much. I hope you're enjoying the party. All right, so I'm opening up some forums right now, specifically the Slytherin forums, because there was something that I got wrong. Well, I didn't get wrong, but in the previous little bit where I was talking about them, I had learned that Warhammer Armageddon was this, Slytherin made it, and it was their, traditional World War II format, just with a Warhammer reskin. And as it turns out, yes, that's true, but they made like a bunch of Warhammer games, and it's like they've been working with them like a long time. I had no idea. So they did Warhammer 40k Battle Sector. That's one they did, and what was the other one they did? Hang on, I'm scrolling down. Warhammer 40k Sanctus Reach. I think there might have been one more. The big one that I really liked. Gallius, but I don't have it in front of me, so I know I'm saying it wrong. Hang on a second. Gladius. That's them as well. So a bunch of games that are less counter-based, right? And they have more animations and stuff, so they're a little bit more impressive visually, but a little bit less modular. So when you look on the forums, all of the responses center around Armageddon, because there's people, trading user-made content and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, man, that's where it's at. User-made content. Make your games moddable, because that's some of the best stuff in the world. But yeah, okay, so that company did a bunch with Warhammer, and I think I'm kind of learning that perhaps I'm liking the more board game-esque versions of Warhammer. I kind of had heard, Well, I'm going to name names. Swingle, my good buddy Swingle, had a lot of fun with the RTS Warhammer games, Dawn of War and those games like that. And he was like, yeah, that's okay. So usually when I would check something out Warhammer related, I would bounce it off him just to see what he thought. And he would often be like, okay, so that game over there is kind of more board gamey, not really. And his thing. And I'm thinking, maybe that might be what I like. So kudos to Slytherin for all their work in the Warhammer franchise, and I've been loving it. I've checked out these other games. Gladius I have, because Swingle, of all people, just had an extra code and gave it to me, which was a really awesome thing to do. But the other two, I checked out last night, and they are on sale, but it's one of those things where it'd be like $15 a piece to get the all the DLC and stuff, Battle Sector and whatever the other one is, Sanctus Reach, and I don't think I can quite justify that much money on video games for this sale, because I just picked up a bunch of stuff. But that's cool. I feel like I discovered a whole new world, a new fantastic point of view, et cetera, or whatever the rest of the words from that song from Aladdin were. We're back to the mystery track. I don't know if I would have got this one. Let's let it play for a few more seconds before we move on. I think this is the loop part right here. Yeah, there we go. We're looping now. All right. Let's go back to Spoopy 7, the album, for just a minute. Again, you can get this off of the Battle of the Bits Bandcamp page, and if you don't know where that is, just head over to battleofthebits.org. They got a link in the upper right-hand corner. This song is called Afterlife, and it's from Cade Composer. It's the third track off that album. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. We are back again on TCR. So I took a week off between the time before and after that song being played. I couldn't quite get TCR wrapped up for the week, so rather than just rush it and hate doing it, I just let it breathe for a bit. Okay, so now that I'm back recording again, let's take a minute to wrap up our mystery track that we talked about when I initially started recording. So this is from, if you're an NES guy, you probably recognize it, but it's from Rad Racer for the NES. And what makes it a difficult track to pick out is that the original Rad Racer didn't by default have background music. The way Rad Racer worked was the game was silent when you started it, and if you pressed down on the keypad, you had 3 background tracks you could cycle from in the car, and it was they simulated, changing the radio station on the car, which was really cool, especially for the NES, And this was one of the 3. So you could have played a ton of Rad Racer in the day and never really sat down and listened to this song, which, in my opinion, makes it a perfect track for a mystery game. It's a good track, too. Alright, so I spent some time with the DLC for Bolt Gun. We talked about that initially, how I was playing Bolt Gun, and I finished the main quest, and man, the main quest was so good. The stock version of Bolt Gun that you buy when you buy it from the store, minus the DLC, is a top-notch game. But I bought the DLC immediately after I finished it, and I started working my way through it. It's pretty cool, but it loses some of the magic because they amp up the number of enemies that you face, and consequently the exploration is toned down a little bit. There's still cool things to see, but you're fighting way more people, and it's way less exploration. So it feels a lot more like Painkiller than it did Bolt Gun. If you remember Painkiller, if you've never played that, very similar game, but what makes Painkiller distinct is that it was an arena game. You would have a closed arena, and you'd have to kill all the monsters, and then once you did that, the next arena would open, and you'd walk into it, and it would close again until you killed all those monsters. The Bolt Gun DLC, Forges of Corruption, feels a lot more like Painkiller than the original version did. And so it lost some of the magic. And then I got to the boss battle, the very end of the boss battle, like at the end of the pack. And I can't get any traction. It's just too much. And I'm playing on a normal difficulty. Okay, if I were to sum up the original game in a single word, it would be more. When you're playing the OG Bolt Gun, it's like more, bring on more enemies, more blood, more guts, more everything. And then when you play the DLC, it's like more with a question mark. You killed everyone, you're barely alive, you've used up all the health, and then more people start warping in, and it's like, more? Really? So I don't know if I mentioned that in the first half of the show, but I liked the stock version so much that it kind of sucks to abandon the DLC in the final battle. Because it's pretty relatively short DLC. The levels run about a half an hour each in the game, and there's 5 levels per mission, and there's 3 missions in the regular game. So, is it 3 or 6? Is it 5 or 6 per pack? So something like 15 levels, something like that, at a half an hour per level. So then you get the DLC, and the DLC is just 5 levels, just one set, and each one takes about a half an hour. And I'm on the last one, and I just hit the wall. And I gotta say, man, I am done. I'm done with the old bolty gunny. But I got 16.3 hours out of it before I finally threw my hands up. So what an emotional roller coaster it's been with that game. Kal-El, no. It's time for the fail bag. All right, boys. I've been struggling to get this episode out, and I know how this goes. Once you miss a little bit, it gets extraordinarily difficult to just get the next one out, and that's what I'm running into now. So let's go ahead and do the fail bag real quick, and we'll probably call it a show at that point. So we got one over on emeraldrangers.com. This is from the Gaming Beast. He says, great, you had a birthday. Great, you had a great birthday. I only celebrate... let's try that again. The only celebrity I share a birthday with is Jessica Biel. You should have schooled your son at that game. You know you can destroy him. See if he likes it. Lol. I kid, of course. Give me a second. The recording just sort of stopped abruptly on me. I remember VVVVVV was in a wave of indie games I really paid attention to. I beat it as well, but I'm not getting all the shinies. Lol. It has achievements now, and I attempted to beat it again. I have Hitman games on GOG. I have yet to play any of them. I enjoy stealth games, but at times it's a bit of an anxiety simulator. All right, stop there. Yes, and that's one of the things I like about the Hitman games, is with the Hitman games, if something happens and your cover is blown, you can just start shooting, and that's like a viable approach. So because of that, it's a little bit less anxiety-inducing than other stealth games, at least in my opinion. But also because of that, I think some of the stealth is harder. It's like, look, if the stealth isn't essential and you want to go the stealth route anyway, then it takes somebody who's really stealthy. But I think that balance makes it more playable to me than like the Tenshu games or something like that. Even though those games are really good, this game does a better job of like mixing it, in my opinion. All right, what else we got? Oh, God, you played that AI slop song. Lol, I regret nothing. But what do I know? I only tried out Metal Storm once. It was a cool game. Haven't gone too deep with it. First one to do the gravity reverse, but that eventually V did as well, but quite a few other games. Question of the Beast, is there a DOS game that you played recently and enjoyed? I went back to play Albion, the old German sci-fi fantasy-themed RPG that I beat as a kid. Anyways, great episode as usual, man. See you next week. DOS games that I've played recently. Well, I mean, I got those war game collections on CD-ROM, and those are the ones that work. Those are full of DOS games. So there was one in particular that I was interested, that I went through like photocopying the copy protection because it has an old feely copy protection. Give me a second if I can bring up the name of it. Stand by. Sword of Aragon. I thought that looked really sweet, and I don't think that's on GOG or Steam or anything. I think if you want to get that, you'd have to get it. You'd have to like pirate it. And I actually have it legit, and it seems pretty dope. It's a war game, but it's a fantasy war game, so more like I want to say Heroes of Might and Magic, but think more primitive than that. So that seems pretty cool. But actual DOS games that I've played recently, nothing out of the ordinary. I have a handful of DOS games that I revisit on a regular basis, and those are Rogue, the original Rogue. I still fire that up every once in a while and get killed in the dungeon. And then lately it's been Panzer General, which is it's funny because I bought it legit like a bunch of times, and the best version is still the version that you can get off of like xtcabandonware.com. But it's still a good game. It's still a good game. I hope they get the licenses sorted out so that you can buy Panzer General on Steam or something. But those are DOS games that I like. Nothing like, when you visit an abandonware site and you get like these weird exotic games, and you're like, oh, that's cool. And more often than not, you play them like once or twice and then not revisit. I haven't done that in a little while, although that does sound like a fun thing to do right now. Darab, come in. Thanks for checking in. It's always good to hear from you, brother. Good job with the Beastcast, by the way. Pretty awesome that the Beastcast has been weekly. All right. Let's shift gears and head over to YouTube and see what the kids are saying. Community tab. Okay, so we were gone for a couple of weeks. I don't know if this was read or not. This is from Mecha Menace 2 weeks ago. He says, the only comment of mine I recall that you didn't read is a response about asking about AI. It's probably the last 5 episodes if you look for it. I don't even recall what I wrote. Maybe it's worthless reading. Maybe it's changed currently. If I were to briefly summarize, I believe we should learn to adapt and coexist. It's going to come no matter what, and it's going to take jobs, which humans currently have in all sectors. It's not just data, but it'll take over manufacturing. Yeah, and we were talking about AI, and I guess, it sounds like you're right. I really don't know what to expect. But it's coming. It's not like refusing to view AI art or refusing to use ChatGPT, GPS is going to change that. So that's my opinion. So here's hoping that we persevere, I guess. Death Adder says the term punchable face isn't good enough for that DJ Khaled guy. More like a Shoryuken knocking his face above the firmament and the sun kind of a face. It doesn't even look human. It makes me... I'm sure he makes sweet jungle rhythms, but I'll never know. I ended up getting the Ambernick that looks like a Game Boy Advance SP. It's pretty fun to play during commercial breaks. A little on the clicky side, but it's adorable. I went transparent red. I have the same machine, except mine's like a purpley, bluey. I enjoy it. I loaded mine up with... This is CF now. I loaded mine up with... a folder of old music videos and like old cartoons, because you get this, you go out and you buy like an SD card, right? And I'm going to put all my ROMs on here, and you put every video game you'd ever want to play realistically, and then I still have 100 gigs left over. So I put a bunch of like cartoons and like music videos and stuff, and I was like, whatever, we'll never use this, but that's fine. And then sure enough, when I was on vacation one time, there was no, the TV service or the internet was out. And there was some problem where I couldn't get anything on the TV. And my youngest one was having a real issue. And the Ambernick SP whatever, 35XX SP, I think it is, that saved the day because I had like some episodes of Peppa Pig or Blue's Clues or something, whatever it was on it. And then we switched it over to, he watched cartoons for a while, and then we switched it over to the classic video from the Beastie Boys, Sabotage with the haircuts and the 70s cars and stuff. And we had a great time. So yeah, that is a very versatile machine that has gotten me out of a jam a couple of times. So yeah, good pick. Back to the comment though. He says, I've recently been selling some of my old Wii, 360, and Xbox One games that I'll never touch again and turning them into Japanese Sega Saturn games. Nice. Was this a folly move? I'll let you know down the road. Sometimes it's a good idea to refresh your hoard. 1000% agree. To the Death Mug of wrong podcast. To the Black Tea Mug of Chiptunes. Death Adder, man. It's so good to hear from you, brother. If you ever want to give it a spin again, we all miss the Death Adder Super Show. I actually stopped by your old Blogspot page recently, and it looks like the last one was 2019, or at least the last post on that site was 2019. That's 6 years ago, man. I know you hung it up, but if you ever wanted to just take it a spin one more time, give us a heads up. We got one for the next episode. He says 488, TCR 488. At 3 minutes and 12 seconds in, I spent about 3 minutes thinking about it. Now, hang on. Let me pause this. I actually have to go back and see what question he's responding to. So hang on 1 second. All right. He's referring to the mystery track from 488. And I think the mystery track in that episode was Batman on the NES. Let me get back to the comment. Give me a second. I navigated away from it like a dummy. Yeah. Okay. Help me. Okay, here I am. I spent 3 minutes thinking about it. No cheating. I'm going to say Castlevania The Adventure for Game Boy. I played through the Castlevania collection on Xbox a few years back, and I'm like 90% sure that's the one. I remember that track went really hard, harder than it had any right to. Watch me be wrong. And it's a chiptune for Sabrina the Teenage Witch on the GBA. All right, CF here again. I got to look up Sabrina the Teenage Witch on the GBA and actually use that, because wouldn't that just be a slice of irony? No, it was Batman for the NES, which was a game that I didn't play. So there you go. So I can't fault you for missing that one. Back to the email. It says, did Ice-T really bring up Kotaku, or was that AI? That was real. It was an episode of one of the Law and Order games, one of the Law and Order series on TV, like SVU, I think it was. And it was the one about, was it the one about gaming? The same episode that was like, go home, gamer girl. Very ridiculous, Law and Order in its most ridiculous. And in that instance, they wanted Ice-T to sound like a human. And that was the line they gave him to do it. A very real line that was said on TV by Ice-T. And I think it's absolutely hilarious. I just spent a minute trying to find it to see if I still had it on my desktop to put in the sound bite there, but couldn't find it. All right. Was that the end? No, there's a little bit more. 39 minutes and 50 seconds. No, I'm sorry. I've never played any Civilization games. I apologize for my lack of banter on that topic. You know what? As far as Civilization goes, I totally get it. Actually, the only reason I'm able to play Civilization is because Hemrock not just gave me the box for Civ 2, but he actually got me on the phone, or Skype was what we were using at the time, and slowly walked me through it. This is what you click on. This is what this means. This is what that means. So I never had to do a lengthy tutorial. I never had to do any real manual, real hardy manual reading, except for like little fact lookups. And that's because I was lucky enough to get a walkthrough. And on a complex strategy game like that, I would not have been able to play it without it. So I completely sympathize with people who look at Civilization and they're like, nope, not for me. 39 minutes, 50 seconds in, he says, wow, I was dead wrong. I was willing to bet the farm on that one too. I mean, I got to look up Castlevania Adventure and get the actual track from that one. Man, you're almost at episode 500. That's more episodes than the Super Show, Mondo Coolcast, the Beastcast, and Vintage Video Game Geeks 2 podcasts combined and a bag of chips. You have to get Metal Jesus Rocks or Markiplier on for episode 500. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not big enough for Markiplier, and I don't think Metal Jesus Rocks would jump on a call with me either. And even if he did, it would be really short and awkward because I'm not really sure what to ask the guy, apart from like, I know he worked at Sierra at one point, so I guess it would be cool to hear him talk about his days working at Sierra. But yeah, I don't know. It would be kind of fun to do something fun for 500, but I have no idea what that would be. I think just getting out an episode 500 in and of itself is kind of a win. So there you go. Well, you know what that sound means. My apologies for being so late with this week's episode. It's good to be back on the air. Thank you guys so much for hanging in there and spending some time listening to some chiptunes and just chilling, talking about video games, doing our thing. I really appreciate it. And whatever it is you got going on in your life, God bless. Just do the best you can. It doesn't always work out, but your best shot is straight through. So I'm rooting for you. I really am. Take care of yourselves. Be in good health. I'll see you next week.